Okay, so now we have Bonnie. I'd like to introduce Bonnie. I am so thrilled to have her. She's all the way from Amsterdam, and I can't express how happy we are to have her join us when it is let's see, 4:50 in the morning, right, Bonnie?
Yes.
In this talk, Bonnie will open briefly about current events in the Angular community. She's going to be talking about Angular architecture. She is an Angular GDE and collaborator, a senior developer advocate, She is an Angular GDE, the founder
I was going to say, that sounded awfully familiar.
There you go, Sam. She is an Angular GDE, but she is also the founder of Angular Nation and a familiar face from Angular era in NG Houston. She currently spends her time teaching Angular and connecting like-minded people in the community on angularnation.net. When she's not working from her home office, you can find her in her garden or the kitchen with her daughter, Sam. So let's all welcome Bonnie.
Hi. Actually, my daughter wrote the end of that bio specifically for the coronavirus. She said I need a new bio. So that's why it says if she's not in her office, she's in the kitchen.
Great.
Okay, so you want me to share my screen and just jump right in?
Sure.
Let me see here. I'm going to start out with, so I'm going to start it. No, whoa, I can't do that. I got to share my screen first and then start the slides. Keynote takes over my whole, like everything.
If you have the latest update, you can play it within a window. It's magic.
Oh,
it's under
I did not know that.
Play menu. Yeah, you can actually play it in a window now. It solves all of your problems.
I'm going to get that. You're full of so much information, Sam.
I try.
Okay, I'm sharing my screen. Can you guys see this?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can, Bonnie.
Okay, so I'm just going to run through some slides. I want to talk to you about Angular Nation real quick, and then, but I'm going to go through this kind of quickly because I want to share code with you guys and like teach you some cool stuff. So I'm going to go through this a bit quick. Okay, so I'm Bonnie. And I want to talk to you about Angular Nation, and I'm just kind of trying to spread the word and let people know this is here. So this started back in 2017. Jeff Welpley actually picked up the domain, which I thought was pretty cool. Angular Nation, it just sounds neat. But he got busy with the project. He was going to build something and he didn't have time. And so he asked if anybody wanted the domain, and I said I did. I didn't really know what to do with it, but I just thought it was cool. But I wanted to build something for the Angular community, but I just didn't know what, right? Because the last thing we need is another social media platform, am I right? We had Stack Overflow and Reddit, and I was kind of thinking of like a Stack Overflow Reddit clone type thing because I really wanted a place for us to collaborate and really specifically ask each other questions and get help, right? Because it's confusing. When I first started Angular, I was working completely by myself and trying to figure it out. And when I started participating in the community, I just learned so much faster, right? So it was super helpful for me to kind of compare what I was doing with other developers. And that's really what I wanted to provide, but I didn't know, again, the last thing we needed was another social network. So I didn't know how, so I actually sat on this domain for years because I didn't know what to build, right? And then I found Yoga with Adrian, which led me to Mighty Networks. And this platform really is a platform designed for private communities around a shared interest. So it's like Meetup on steroids, right? It's the interface has topics and channels like breakout rooms. We can host live events, dedicated chat channels, polls, questions, all that kind of stuff. So I really, really love the interface because it's really meant for a community. And so I started working on that. And then we launched it we ended up launching it early in 2020 because of coronavirus. And so I want to talk about that and I want to show you what it looks like. But first, I just want to touch briefly on social media because there's some crazy stuff going on. So when I first started getting involved in the community and speaking at Angular conferences, most of the speakers were using Twitter, which so I followed all my favorite speakers, and pretty soon I had a great Twitter feed that was almost entirely Angular. And for some people that might be boring, but for us that's great, right? This is all I used Twitter for. So for me, it was a great place to keep up with the community and my friends in between conferences. So for the past few years, this has been working out very well. However, we've all seen the warnings lately about harmful patterns in social media. We've got Instagram influencers and YouTube personalities and bots and trolls and a whole lot of political propaganda. And the algorithms that they use are intentionally divisive and harmful. And unfortunately, they're also very effective, as we've seen from Trump and Brexit. And don't even get me started on politics. So I'm going to keep moving. We're not here to talk about that. The point that I want to make is that now more than ever, social media is harmful, and it can be harmful to our mental health, right? So although I had carefully cultivated my own Twitter feed to be all Angular all the time, that's all changed this year. And I'm an American expat. I live in Europe now, but I'm still following a lot of Americans, and there's been a lot of frustration with politics. And then suddenly we had coronavirus, right? And then the human rights conflicts and Black Lives Matter, and it's just all getting crazy. And I really do care about this stuff, and I care about these problems. And that's why it's so stressful for me to see this all the time, right? And what they used to, I want to keep up with the news, but what they call news now has become something more sinister. And it's just like, where is the news? So, and again, I don't want to get into that too much, but I do want to tell you guys about this documentary that just came out on Netflix. It's called The Social Dilemma. And I know this is not about Angular, but I urge you to watch this with your family, especially if you have teens or young adults on social media. This is some really scary stuff that's going on. So we used to call it social networking, and somewhere along the way it changed to social media, which is something completely different because we don't really have control anymore over what we're looking at. Someone else is driving our timelines now, and I really don't like that at all. So we've known for a while that social media is harmful, but we still need a way to connect with other people. And now with coronavirus, that's like way more important than it ever was. So I've been speaking at Angular conferences for several years, and I love these crazy people. What I love about the Angular community and the GDE program is that people are super nice and they're so humble. They're all a bunch of nerds, right? So if you're in the hallway of a conference and you get started talking about code, like these people will just stand there and nerd out all day. And I love that. And I miss that. So this is why I created Angular Nation, right? I want to have a place like the hallway track where we can hang out and just talk to each other. This is not necessarily like a platform for experts. Like this is a platform for everyone else, right? Just to jump in, the beginners and people trying to figure it out as we go along. It's a private online community, but it's free. The only reason that it's private is so that we can enforce a code of conduct and keep things on topic. All you need is an email address. So we're only talking about Angular here. We're asking questions, trading tips, comparing experiences. Our code of conduct is basically the same as most of the conferences. It's just be nice, right? Don't spam us and be friendly. I was worried at first that too many people would ask questions and I wouldn't be able to answer them all. So I invited a bunch of other GDEs, but I didn't really have anything to worry about because we have a lot of people actually answering questions and asking them too. So people have been super, super nice. People can come and post whatever they want to share. Sometimes there are actually some great discussions and they're all super nice. I just posted something yesterday. Sam Julien has a new book out and it's actually, it looks really cool. So I just posted about that. We established right from the start that beginners are welcome here, but I was actually kind of, I just wanted people to be friendly because when I was a beginner, I tried asking questions on Stack Overflow and people made me feel really bad about myself. So the surprising thing is that even though we are very welcoming for beginners, a lot of the questions that we get here are much more advanced. So we have more senior developers, which is awesome. Also, the interface looks a bit like Twitter, but one of the things that I really like that Mighty Networks has that Twitter doesn't have is topics for each post. So one of the things that I struggled with is it's very hard to find things later when you come back on Twitter. So it's very easy to find something. So if you want to just go into like authentication and look for stuff like that, it's pretty nice. Okay, so so far we have about 20 topics. We have AngularJS, CLI, schematics, elements, material. We got a lot of people talking about state management and Scully and RxJS. And we have some of the authors and core team members there directly answering questions. We also have a bunch of channels, and we have a lot of free community meetup channels. We would love to have a channel for San Diego if you guys want to join us. Basically, so these are like breakout rooms for smaller groups. And like I said, one of the things that surprised us, we thought there would be a lot of beginners, but once we had like 1,000 people join in the first week, which was super exciting, and we were not prepared for that. I was kind of overwhelmed. It was fun though. And so I started asking people questions kind of to get to know them. And we found a lot of people were not beginners. Samantha and I, my daughter and I, have been working on a beginner's course with the video and everything. But when we found out that we had a lot of senior devs, we put that on hold, and we pivoted, and we created our Angular architect training, because that's really what everybody was asking for the most, was like the senior developers want more than just the, typical tutorials. So we launched this in August. We're running training with small groups, which is super fun, because we just get like, a half a dozen or a dozen people in a group together, and we run them through a month of training. And we have content sessions every Tuesday, and then Thursdays we have 2 office hours sessions, so people can come in and ask us questions. And the office hours, I think, are the best part of the training, because we actually get to have, one-on-one and talk about what people are working on in their own jobs and their own apps. So that's been super fun, and I really enjoy that. We just started September this week, and we had 1 session so far. We have 4 weeks left, so it's not too late if you're interested in architect training. Come and join us. And one more thing before we jump into the code. I just want to say one last thing about this course. We think this course is a great value. We try to keep the price really affordable. It's $250, which I think is great for a 4-week course that's interactive. And again, the one-on-one is great. But even with that low price, some parts of the world, the currency just really makes this prohibitively expensive for some people. So even though we try to keep the price low, it's still it's too much money. So we started a Baker's Dozen scholarship for underrepresented groups. So for every 12 tickets that we sell, we give away 1 for free to an underrepresented group, and this is going to be there forever. We just want to even things up a little bit. So we've awarded 1 free ticket already yesterday to somebody, and we have 1 more person waiting. So we also offer a sliding scale. So if it's just too expensive, but you really want this training, please reach out and let me know, because I really want to make this affordable. We have a lot of underrepresented groups that I want to try to help, right? So reach out to me if this is not affordable for you, and let's see if we can make something happen. Okay, so enough slides. Let's go look at some code. Let me stop this screen share, and I'm just going to jump in. So this demo that I did, I'm using Reactive Forms and Angular Material for this, but I want to say that that's not really the point of the demo, because this is more a pattern that I want to show. Let me go over to, I saw a question, Thomas. There's not a discount code. If you go over to angularnation.net, you can just reach out to me. There's an article there. I should have clicked it. I should have linked it. There's a form that you can fill out if you're interested in the Baker's Dozen scholarship, but you can also just reach out to me and ping me on Angular Nation, and I'll send you the link for it. Okay, so we're talking about, I use Reactive Forms and Angular Material in this demo, but that is not the point that I want to make, because this is more about, where is it? It's really about architecture, and this is a pattern. I want to show you guys something that I've just seen a lot, and I want to show you, but this doesn't need to be used for Reactive Forms. So this is just an example, right? So I want to show you this because this is very typical. Let me know if this is too big or too small, but this is just such a typical thing that I see with, I've done a lot of consulting, and this is like very normal, typical Angular code, right? This is just a very simple, again, let me show you the, so it's just a form, right? It's just first name, last name. I put some drop downs in here, but it's just, it's just for a demo. Favorite season, favorite, all this stuff, right? So the point of this is that it's very, very simple. I just want to show a basic reactive form. And so this is what it looks like, right? We got the first name, we got the last name, and then over here on the right, we've got the coordinating reactive form fields. So this is very typical. I see this so much. This is Angular and this is reactive forms. However, what do you notice if you look at this? Put it in the chat if you see, because I want to see if you guys can guess before I say. What do you see about this? What's wrong with this code, right? And this is it. The code works fine. There's not there's anything wrong with it. But when I look at this, like, it immediately makes my eye twitch, right? Why? Because it's not dry. I mean, it's dry, but it's not dry, right? And so this is really where we talk about, and everybody knows to keep your code dry. But it's not dry, and it's hard for people, like, well, this one's a material input and this one's a drop down, so we can't really iterate through an array because they're kind of different. And so this is what I see so much of. And what I want to say really, this, by the way, this repo is on GitHub and you can see all the code. So I'm not going to spend too much time going into the code, but really the point of this is that if you're writing Angular like this, even though, and technically it is Angular, but if you're writing it like this, you're missing the beauty that is Angular, right? Because the nicest thing about Angular is that it lets us do all this dynamic stuff. So I just want to talk about that for a minute, and I just want to talk about how that works, right? So if I wanted to make this dynamic, the first thing that I would do, let me show you where it starts. And again, I'm not going to go into dive too much of this because this is on GitHub, but I just want to show you where it starts, because what you need is the model, right? And actually, you know what? I should show you. That's not the one I want to show you first. I want to show you if we want to take this and use it in an array, because this is basically what we're doing, right? This pattern, we're going to iterate through an array. So what we want is we want to turn each one of these form fields. So you see there's a field type and really the interface, but I want to show you because you can see it better here in the constants. Okay, so what we want to do here is take this and basically turn it into an array, right? We got the first name, last name, and so the only thing that's unique about each one of these is the label. So we have this form control name here, right? And then what we want to do is just iterate through each one of those. And I want to show you, because here's the tricky part, because they're not all the same, because some of them are input fields and some of them are drop downs, right? So how does that work? So I want to show you that code for a minute to see what it looks like. I really thought a lot about making this into an NPM lib so that people could use it. And I really came pretty close to doing that. I was meaning to do that. It was on my to-do list for a while. And when I sat down to do it, I thought, no, I don't want to make this into another lib because it's not that much code. But really, the most important thing to me is that I want you guys to know how to do this, because I don't want you to have, it's not that much code, and I don't want you to have another dependency to worry about, and you don't need to, right? So I want to show you this, because I think this one really is where you can see how the magic happens in this whole thing. And there's a little bit more complicated code that I can show you a little bit, but this is really, I think, the easiest way to visualize what's going on here. This is an ng switch case, which is basically an if statement, right? If this, then this. This is a conditional. So you see that we switch on the field type, which was, an input box or a drop down. And then in here, you just see each one of these. Like I said, I'm using Angular material. But again, this is one of the reasons why I didn't want to make this into a lib, because it's cool. It works really well, and a lot of people like it. But you might not be using Angular material. You might be using Kendo or something else, right? Or you might want to have your own CSS. So this is where, if you just look at the way that this is done, it would be very easy for you to take this and put something else in. Because see, here's a checkbox and here's a date picker. And so inside each one of these is just the material form field, right? But if you look at this file, it should hopefully be very easy for you to figure out how to modify this, right? Because that's kind of the point of this demo, is I want you to be able to take this code and make it your own. One thing that I want to point out real quick here is the switch case is not actually the most efficient way to do this, because the switch case is very good for me for teaching, because it's easy to understand what's going on here. But there's actually a faster way. There's a component factory resolver does the exact same thing as a switch case in Angular. It's slightly faster on the render because it's happening in the TypeScript. But I just think this is very easy. The component factory resolver is a little bit more complicated. This is just so easy to look at. This also, you would never notice a difference between the switch case and the component factory resolver unless you have 500 or 5,000 on one page. But if you're only having a dozen or even 24 form control or form fields on a page, then you're not going to notice a performance hit on this. So this would be perfectly acceptable for most cases. I just wanted to point that out. Anyway, so the switch case is this, like I said, I like to show this because this is where the magic happens. But if we look into the dynamic form, this is basically where, hold on, I want to show you this one first. So what we're doing here is we're iterating through an array of form fields, right? And we're just going to let each field a field, and then we've got the dynamic field that I just showed you where the switch case is. That's the dynamic field. And so that's basically just showing one field, and it's saying what kind of field is it, and show it. I had put the error handling in here. I just commented this out because I didn't get around to updating it when I made this. I updated this recently for Angular version 10. I think 11 is out now. I have to update it again. But anyway, okay, so if we go in here, this is actually really where I would say it's complicated, but I try not to make it complicated. And also because I use this for teaching, I work with a lot of junior developers. So I put generous comments in here so that you can go on GitHub, and I'll make sure you guys have the link for it. So you can go on GitHub and use this. And I put so many comments in here so that it hopefully is kind of self-explanatory. But I just want to go through the highlights of it real quick, because what we're going to do is we're going to initialize form. Anyone who's worked with the reactive form knows that if you don't have all of your form fields defined, then you're immediately going to get an error as soon as you try to render it. So first, what we need to do is wait until we have everything initialized. And we're just going to create a form builder group, and then we're going to go through each field in the field set and just add that form control, right? So we have a couple of things, and I actually built something in here for a slide toggle, because we use a lot of conditional fields. So if you're doing reactive forms, you've probably run into a situation where you want to show or hide fields maybe based on a Boolean or something like that. And so that's just a little bit of logic there. You can also have default values and validation in here. And then there's another function here that just will go through each individual. So we've got the initialize form and initialize each form control, right? So basically, we're just iterating through an array. And like I said, this is a pattern. I don't want you guys to just look at this for only reactive forms or only Angular material, because I've also used the same pattern for charts. We had a client that was doing a lot of D3 and high charts, and so we used a wrapper like this in order to have dynamic charts. It's also really good. I've done this same pattern for pop-ups. If you have a lot of pop-ups or even toast notifications, and you see, this is something I've really seen a lot with pop-ups, where you might have 3 or 4 different components, but each one of those components is so similar because the only thing different is the text that it shows in the pop-up. And so if you see that, then that's where you want to think about extracting that out into a dynamic component. But when you do that, really, and I made this the first time a couple years ago, what I found immediately, and if you run into this, please, come over on Angular Nation, let's talk about it, because what I found was that as soon as I started trying to make a dynamic component, that I started kind of quickly outgrowing the tutorials that were out there, because there were some fabulous, like Deborah Carrata has some great Pluralsight courses. I love Deborah Carrata. And she has a fabulous reactive forms course. And that was really helpful for me when I was learning reactive forms. But when I started going into more dynamic stuff, then it doesn't really, a lot of the tutorials don't cover that. So it got a little more complicated, but I just had to fiddle with it for a bit. And once I got it working, what I find is, especially since I wrote this one, I've used this same code for like 3 or 4 different clients. And it ends up, a little bit of code like this saves so much code, because I've seen people, we go back to that one without the, when we talk about this one, where was it? The new form.html. I've seen so many people writing code just like this. And maybe it's not worth it to make the dynamic form if you've just got a couple of pages, but I've seen people with like 19 pages of reactive forms, and it's not dry. And especially if you get into architecture, you're not even looking at your own code being dry. You're looking at the whole entire company. And so if you're sharing code with a bunch of other people and you want to make all the code dry, then this is where stuff like this comes in. So again, the reason why I didn't make this an NPM library, even though I think it's really cool and a lot of people could use it, is because I want to use this for teaching, because I don't want you to just import it and use it. I want you to know how to extend this and use your own. And I want to show you what this same exact thing looks like once we implement the form, and we go into this one. And again, I want to show you the constants, right? Let's open this to the side, because when we show these two side by side, it goes from this to this. So now all I do is I feed in this field set, and then let me show you what it looks like now, the exact same. So this file here, instead of this, we have the array, and this file now looks like this. It looks like this. because now all we're doing is feeding in that field set, and then we can use that over and over and over again. And also, if you look at the TypeScript that goes along with it, we're just importing the field set, which is this left form right here, and then we just feed it into the HTML. There's the field set, and the form does the rest. So you see, you use that dynamic form, you create that dynamic form component once, and then all of your other code looks like this. And if they ask you to come and, you know, change something or add a new field, I mean, all you do is just do this right here. So I think this is a really beautiful way to write code. And again, this, I just want to say this because this is the most important thing. If you don't remember anything else that I've just taught you, this is technically Angular, but if you're writing code like this and you see like it's dry, but it's not dry, then even though this works, you're missing out on the most beautiful part of Angular, which is that it allows us to do this dynamic stuff. Like that's the joy of Angular. So it's a little bit intimidating. It's a little more complicated when you do the dynamic stuff. But if you fiddle with it a bit and get it working, it will save you a lot of time. And again, this is why I created Angular Nation, so that you can come over and we can figure it out together. Because when you start going a little bit more dynamic and a little bit more advanced on these components, then, you know, it gets a little tricky, and that's why we all have to kind of collaborate, help each other, and ask questions. So I'm going to make sure that Mishi and Julie have this link so that you guys can tweet it out, maybe put it in the show description. But this is bcarson/dynamic reactive forms on GitHub. And again, all this code is in a free repo, so you can go and get it. Please use it and let me know if you have questions, if you're trying to implement something like this. I'm happy to help you. That's it. That's my talk.
Wow. Thank you, Bonnie.
You're welcome.
Do we have any questions? Oh, by the way, I just signed up for Angular Nation, so make sure you approve.
Me too.
And we'll start a San Diego channel for you.
That is amazing. I'll go in there and make you host. And I can actually go into the members and authorize that right now, so you can get in.
Okay. Do we have any questions for Bonnie?
I do have a question.
Okay.
Yeah, so speaking of not really on the forms part, but architecture-wise, what do you recommend most for folder architecture? Because I'm currently architecting like for a startup where it's like a big application in the future. For me, like I usually would organize it by core and by feature, and then within the feature are the components, and the services might be in the core. So I just wanted to get your advice, or for anyone else too, what is like the best practice for that?
That is such a good question, Cher. And actually, we talked about this in our architect training just the other day. This was something that we covered specifically in the first week because I get so many questions about folder structure. And I mean, it seems like, you know, I used to look at that and I'm like, oh, I could put it here and I could put it here. But it's so important because, it's not important in the beginning, but I've done a lot of enterprise consulting. And when you get this massive repo, then that folder structure actually becomes really important. And so that's one of the things that we covered in architect training. And the answer is that two things. Number one, definitely familiarize yourself with the Angular Style Guide, because the Angular Style Guide actually covers this. The Angular Style Guide, it's kind of long and tedious. It's like reading the phone book, right? However, there are some things in there that seem super basic and simple, that are really important. And so there's really great things in there. And one of the things that it says, and which I agree with, and I always forgot about this when I started, right? I used to organize my folders by type. So I would put like all the services in one and all the models in another, and that's wrong. And I used to do that and it worked really well. But as the apps grow, you really want to organize it by feature. And the reason why is because, say, 6 months from now or a year from now, you've got a bigger company and you want to reuse a whole, like a good example, like Sam was talking about authentication. Maybe you have a user module with the authentication and maybe the forgot your password and all that. You want to take that whole section, and it might not be a good example because that's probably a whole entire feature branch. But still, if you want to take imagine one folder that you want to take and you want to move it somewhere else. If you have, your models here and your services here, then what you're going to do is you're going to get one thing from this folder and you don't want to do that. You want to move the whole folder. So that's why you want it. So number one, group by features, not by type. And number 2, check out the Angular style guide. Even though it's really long, if you're an architect, you super should be familiar with it. And also, there's a lot more, because this is one of the things that I talked about in Angular training, so in architect training, so check that out too. That's a very good question.
Cool, thank you so much.
And share in the Angular style guide, it actually does talk about specifically how to structure your folders in there. So go look, it's in there.
Awesome, thank you.
It's very helpful.
How about some other questions for Bonnie?
By the way, while we're waiting for questions, I just went and approved all of the pending invitations for Angular Nation. So if you just put in your email address, then you should get an email right away.
Yay.
Do you have a link for that, Julie?
For what?
For the repo. I'm going to put it in the where's the chat? I'm going to put it in the chat here.
That'd be awesome.
Well, maybe I'll put it in the chat. What happened there? I have to figure out my copy-paste technology. Hey, I successfully copy-pasted, y'all.
Great.
Does anyone else have any questions for Bonnie? That was a really great talk.
Thank you so much.
I think like Sam's talk, like you did such a great job explaining it that there's not a lot of questions because it was also clear.
Yeah, I've used this a lot for teaching. And also if you go like the most complicated part, I think to me, because it's where all the moving pieces is the dynamic form TypeScript, where it's the initialize form and initialize field. But that whole field, that whole file is full of comments. It's like, this code does this code does this. So I love comments. So I put them everywhere. I think especially architects, if you're an architect and you're writing code, your junior developers, and I do this sometimes just as like a test for myself when I'm training people, I show them this code and say, can you tell me what this code does? And they should be able to. And if you're writing really good code as an architect, then this should be, they should be able to tell you what. And if your code is really confusing, then think about that.
Definitely agree.
This is great because it's 5:30 in the morning here now. And I have the whole day ahead of me. And I'm like wide awake. And I've had such a lovely morning because you people are so great and so friendly. I get to see Sam Jeline. I get to see Julie and Mitchie. This is great.
We're so excited that you joined us and woke up so early. I don't remember last time I was awake that early.
I have not been awake this early in a long time, but it was worth it. This was a great way to wake up. I get to hang out with the San Diego people.
That's so lovely to hear.
I've got a question on kind of error handling and validators. Because they're all at the core reactive forms, we get all those things like on changes, etc. Or would we have to do some finagling for that?
AJ, I am so glad you can. Michi, do I have time to screen share one more thing? Because there's something that I completely skipped. And he just asked the best question, and I just want to show this one little thing. Do I have time?
Yes,
please. Absolutely.
AJ, I want to show you something because you asked such a good question. And this is like, I skipped it because I didn't want to go too far into this, but I want to show you to you because it's beautiful. Okay, so when we talk about, where did it go? We have the dynamic form here. You saw that I had a little bit of error handling in here, right? This was Todd Motto's NGX errors. It was working fine. I had to fiddle with it a little bit to get it working, but it was working. The only reason why it's commented out is because I didn't have time to mess with it when I went back and updated everything. So AJ, if you want to uncomment this, you probably could fiddle with it and get working a little bit, but I want to show you, this is really cool. It doesn't look cool, but it's really cool. Okay, so when I was trying to get that working, right? So you know how we have all of the actual form controls, the actual reactive form controls are here inside of the dynamic field, which is the child, and the dynamic form, which is the parent, right? So in order to get the field, because the field is in here and the parent is out here, that I couldn't get the error. So what I needed to do, because obviously, and if we're going to show errors, we need We need field.check, dirty, pristine, touched. We need all that stuff, right? And so I actually had to pass those in this from the parent to the child. Well, I had started in this spot. This field was where I was like doing dirty and checked for, but the problem was I was like having to do it for each one, and this was becoming a problem. And then I found this amazing thing called a form group directive. Have you ever heard? I had never heard of this before, and I've never seen anybody talk about it. It's like this poor forgotten little redheaded stepchild of Angular, right? The form group directive. I'd never heard anybody talk about it, but the beautiful thing is once I found this, I put a comment in here because I just think this is like, I had no appreciation for this obscure little thing, but once I did this, that I actually deleted like 100 lines of code from this because I was passing all these as outputs, and so that I could get it. Because what I did was I had a value changes, and every time something changes, and I was writing all this code because I had to subscribe to the value changes. I had to get this, and every time something changed, then I had to manually pass it. And then I found out, because I really didn't like it, I'm like, there's got to be a better way, and this is it. The Angular team gave us this beautiful form group directive. So if you see this one line of code here, right, that looks like nothing. It doesn't even look like anything, but we get this form group directive control get. We take this, the field name, that's all we need. So this one tiny little piece of code right here allows us to pass. So then when we pass this up, right, we've got this field. Look at the code again. No, here, it's this one. Yeah, so this is it. This is all the code, right? I'm not passing anything from the child to the parent. And this is another thing that we're really talking about quite a bit in the architect course, that I see so many people writing more code than they need because they don't know about some of these, obscure advanced features. So this is where y'all don't know, I had like the craziest happy dance when I got this working. Like I got up out of my chair and I was dancing. I was so happy because I deleted, there was so much code because I was passing like every single thing. This dot dirty, this dot pristine, this dot touched. And I got rid of all of it. I don't have to pass any of that because of this beautiful thing. So AJ, I'm sorry, like you got me all excited because you asked about validation. I was like, let me tell you, because this totally freaked me out, because this one line of code gives me all of the functionality of the reactive form, so that when I go in here, I can actually get, well, you probably see it better here, but you know what I'm talking about, right? All that error handling validation stuff, so that now I have one error here, and there's something else somewhere. I know we're out of time. I love talking about this. I could nerd out about this all day. But if we go open this to side, then you can see, I think somewhere in here there's an array. No, it's not in this one. It's in an older one. Anyway, if you want to do error, because the error handling is not entirely hooked up. But AJ, if you want to use error handling in this, if you have any problems at all, just ping me. Come over on Angular Nation and send me a message and ask me questions, and I would be happy to talk to you about this. Also, you can join the architect training, because this is one of the things this is just one little snippet from the architecture. This is straight out of the course, and we talk more about this, but you don't need to take the course just for this because it's free. It's on GitHub. You can go use it. And again, I did not make this an NPM library because I don't want you to have another dependency. You don't need it. I want you to learn how to do this for yourself, because it's just cool and you can write it. You don't have to use Angular material or whatever. But that's it. Sorry, AJ got me started because I just got excited. I just wanted to show you the form control directive because it's so cool.
Pretty awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So unless we have any other questions at this time, we'd like to open up the floor for people who are either looking for jobs and would like to talk a little bit about who they are and what they're looking for, or companies that are hiring. So if you are a company and you're hiring, please speak up. Let's start with them.
While we're at it, Julie, you just reminded me. I don't want to keep like plugging Angular Nation, but one thing that, speaking of looking for jobs, we actually have a professional networking channel over there where you can post. So we have people who are looking for jobs and people who are hiring can post and find each other. It's completely free. and you can just send a DM or whatever, reach out to people directly. So that's actually a pretty good channel because there's a lot of people posting in there. It's free for the hiring people, and it's for everybody.
Free.
That's great to know.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody who's looking to hire?
And like Thomas just said, if you want, you please feel free to put your information in the chat. If you feel more comfortable doing it that way, or maybe you don't have a microphone set up, many reasons.
So let's switch to people who are looking. So like Michi said, Thomas is looking. Is there anybody else who wants to?
The Danish Dynamo. Man, I want to hire him now.
Thomas, it's already working.
It's all about the personality. And we actually had, it was cool because, you know, this professional networking channel, I just put it there. I didn't know if it would, you know, I just thought it would be helpful for people. And I actually saw people in there. One guy posted that he was available. And then like 2 people commented and said, send me an email. I want to talk to you like immediately. So I was pretty happy about that. I was like, oh, he got a job.
That's great.
That's awesome.
It made me happy.
All right, cool.
Okay.
I think it's really great that you guys do this, because I was just talking to one of the meetup organizers in Europe yesterday, and I was saying, you know, one of the sad things about it is a lot of meetups are streaming on YouTube now. However, we get to see the talks, but really the best part of the meetup was actually in-person, you know, networking, because we can meet each other, and especially people who are looking for jobs. Like, that's the beauty of going to a local meetup, and that's just gone. But not in San Diego, it's not, because you guys have that. I think that's so clever.
We're trying to replicate that in-person feel as much as we can. It doesn't always translate, but we do what we can.
We also have Greg, who's a junior dev, graduated from a coding boot camp at UCSD. Yay, UCSD alumni. Back in, yeah, raise the roof. Looking for his first real dev job. So, any good to hear that. And so, Michi, do you want to talk about future Women Who Code meetups?
Absolutely. So first, just so many thank yous to both Bonnie and Sam for joining us tonight and giving such amazing talks. It was great to have you both. I love the energy that the both of you come with, and so much information. I can't eloquently say how much I appreciate you both being here. So thank you so much. And yeah, so we run the Angular Meetup on the 3rd Wednesday of every month. We normally have it starting at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We did do it at 7 p.m. this month. If that's a change that you like, if you like having it later, like, let us know. Or if you're like, hey, 7's too late for us, let us know that too. We always want feedback to know how we can improve our meetups for you. And then also, if you ever want to speak at a meetup, we're always looking for speakers. You can be the most experienced speaker ever, or it can be your very first tech talk. We are, you know, we want to give everyone a chance to speak at this. So even if you want to just kind of dip your toe in the tech speaking water and do like a 5-minute lightning talk, that would be great. Just, you know, reach out to me, reach out to Julie. I always say, like, if you want to learn a subject, one of the best ways is to commit to do a talk, because you will know that subject by the time that talk comes up. Otherwise, because you'll be nervous if you don't. So let us know if you ever want to give a talk. Women Who Code also has other events that are not Angular specific. Tomorrow is we have an online coding interview prep series. So tomorrow is the practice one. Kat is our lead for that and is actually here. Kat, do you want to say anything about that?
Come by, it's really fun.
Concise and to the point.
Kat's cool, so yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah. If you haven't been to one of Kat's interview prep events, you're definitely missing out. Definitely check it out. She alternates every other meetup. One's like a practice where you just kind of, you work with another group of people, solve a problem. It's really great to just practice those like interview prep, whiteboarding interview skills. And then the other one she does is a lecture. So those are great if you just want to kind of brush up on your knowledge. So definitely keep an eye out for that. So that our next one is tomorrow at 6 p.m. Also on Zoom, like everything else is. And then next Tuesday, we're doing something new. Again, to try to replicate this in-person feel, we're doing a social hour and virtual speed networking event. Speed networking maybe sounds intimidating. It's not. We're just gonna like randomly pair you up with a couple people. We're gonna give you a topic to talk about, and then you'll have like a couple minutes to chat with that group of people. So you have a topic built in, so there won't be that awkward silence. And then after, I think we're gonna do like 7 minutes, we'll swap you and go to a different group. So it should be a lot of fun. Should be a good way to just kind of socialize. And we're gonna do some just like general tech topics, but nothing that like you have to be an advanced developer to know. And then we have the next coding interview prep on Thursday, October 1st at 6 p.m. And I think that's all the events that we have in Meetup right now. So we're very busy. Definitely check us out on Meetup if you're interested. That was a lot this month. Julie, do you want to talk about SDJS?
Okay, on San Diego JavaScript for us, tomorrow is the monthly Vue.js meetup at 7 o'clock online. Wednesday, the 23rd at 7 p.m. is Fundamental JS, which is a good if you're straight out and want to keep brushing up on your fundamental JavaScript. That's a good meetup to join. And then on Tuesday, October 6th is our San Diego monthly JavaScript meeting where we do a lot of the lightning talks, and that also starts at 7 p.m. So like I said, you can check the San Diego JavaScript calendar, and there's always something going on every week pretty much. So keep an eye on that. And I also want to let you know that we are going to be sending out a survey, hopefully tomorrow, maybe in a day or two. We're trying to get feedback. San Diego JavaScript is trying to get feedback. And if you can help us out and fill that out, we'd appreciate it so we can make better meetups and get in more people. So.
Great. I think that's everything.
I think that's everything.
All right.
Oops, that's not what I wanted to share.
I just want to say you guys are really fun. I've done a lot of meetup talks, and I think this might be my favorite meetup. And I say that as someone who has a meetup, but y'all are so fun. I love your energy.
I love your energy. So both Bonnie and Sam, anytime you guys want to come back and talk,
Right.
door is always open.
Yeah.
Please let us know.
I would get up early for you anytime.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate it.
Try to rope salmon too.
Yeah.
Yeah, anytime.
Great.
Sam's actually the reason I got up so early because I know Sam Jelena is fun. I didn't know the rest of you, but you guys are all fun. This was worth it.
Good.
I'm going to have a great day.
Good.
You got him hooked. All right, I'm going to hold you both to that.
Definitely.
Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. I think that's all we have for you. We have a site if you're not connected with us already. Here's a bunch of links that you can use to connect to both San Diego JS and Women Who Code. Both have Slacks. We both have social media that you can follow. The best way to follow us for upcoming events is on Meetup for both San Diego JS and Women Who Code. But there's also like Slack and newsletters and stuff you can sign up for if you're interested. And I think that's it. All right. Thanks, everyone. Great to see you all. See you all next month.
Day.